I spent 45 years waiting for life to begin. Then, the day I finally chose to live. My doctor looked at me and quietly said, "You may only have 6 months. My name is William Anderson. I'm 65 years old. I live just outside Chicago. For 45 years, I worked at the same manufacturing plant every morning. The alarm rang. At 5 a.m., I never hit snooze. Coffee, that lunchbox, car keys, same routine, every single day. Snowstorms, heavy rain, freezing mornings. It didn't matter. I always showed up. People used to ask, "William, don't you ever take a vacation?" I'd smile and say, "Maybe next year." But next year never came. There was always another mortgage payment, another electric bill, another car payment, another responsibility. I kept telling myself, when I retire, I'll finally live. My wife, Sarah, believed me. She'd say, "One day, we'll drive across America. We'll watch the Pacific Ocean together." I'd smile. One day. Our son, Jack, grew up faster than I realized. One day, he was asking me to throw a baseball. The next, he was packing for college. The house became quiet, too quiet. No toys, no laughter, no late-night conversations, just silence. One Friday evening, after work, I stopped in a Walmart parking lot. I didn't know why. I just sat there, watching people. A young family walked past my truck. The kids were laughing. Their parents were laughing too. They weren't rich. Their car was old, but they looked happy, really happy. Then I noticed an elderly couple. They were holding hands, walking slowly, sharing one cup of coffee. They smiled like they had all the time in the world. I couldn't stop staring. Then a question hit me hard. When was the last time I felt alive? I couldn't answer because I honestly didn't remember. 45 years had disappeared into overtime shifts, bills, responsibilities, and promises I kept making to myself. I had never seen the Grand Canyon, never watched a sunrise over the Pacific Ocean, never taken that road trip Sarah always dreamed about. I wasn't living, I was surviving. That night, I looked at Sarah and quietly said, "I don't want to wait anymore." She smiled, reached for my hand, and whispered, "I've been waiting for you to say that for the first time in decades." We made plans, real plans, not someday, not next year, now. I had no idea that just 3 days later, everything would change forever. 3 days later, I walked into St. Mary's Medical Center, just a routine checkup, at least. That's what I believed. The waiting room was unusually quiet. A television played the morning news. No one was really watching. A nurse called my name. "William Anderson." I stood, smiled politely, and followed her. Blood pressure, blood work, a few questions. Nothing unusual. "Your doctor will be with you shortly." She smiled, then left. I sat alone, looking at family photos hanging on the wall, children laughing, grandparents smiling, life frozen in pictures. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Something didn't feel right. Finally, Dr. Harris walked in. He usually smiled. Today, he didn't. He closed the door, sat across from me, placed a folder on the desk. He took a deep breath, then looked me straight in the eyes. "William, I'm afraid the test results didn't come back the way we hoped." My heart started racing. "What does that mean?" I asked. He opened the folder, pointed to the scans. We found an aggressive cancer. The room fell completely silent. I blinked, waiting for him to say. He was joking. He never did. "There are treatments," he continued, but he stopped, searching for the right words. "Based on what we see today, you may have around 6 months. 6 months." Those 2 words echoed inside my head again and again. 45 years. I waited to start living, and now life was running out. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't even look at him. Dr. Harris quietly slid a box of tissues across the desk. "I wish I had better news," he said softly. I nodded, but honestly, I barely heard anything after that. The appointment ended. I don't even remember walking outside. Rain covered the parking lot. I sat inside my old truck, hands still on the steering wheel, but I couldn't turn the key. For 20 minutes, I just sat there, listening to the rain. Then, without warning, I broke down. Not because I was afraid to die, because I realized I had forgotten how to live. All those years, working overtime, skipping vacations, missing birthdays, postponing dreams. For what? The promotion didn't matter anymore. The bigger paycheck didn't matter anymore. The perfect retirement plan didn't matter anymore. I whispered to myself, "What have I done?" That evening, I walked through my front door. Sarah looked at me. Immediately, she knew. She didn't ask. "How did it go?" She simply said, "Tell me." I handed her the folder. She opened it, read one page, then another. Her hands started shaking. She looked up. Tears filled her eyes. "No," she whispered. "This can't be happening." I walked over, held her hand for the first time. In our marriage, neither of us knew what to say. Hours passed without a single word. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "William, if 6 months is all we have, let's stop counting the days. Let's make the days count." Those words changed something inside me. The fear was still there. The uncertainty was still there. But for the first time in decades, I stopped thinking about work. I started thinking about life. That night, we took out an old notebook. On the first page, Sarah wrote our life list, one by one. We filled the pages. See the Pacific Ocean, drive Route 66, watch the sunrise, together, call old friends, eat breakfast, without checking the time, laugh more, worry less, live before it's too late. As I looked at that list, I realized something. Maybe the doctor hadn't given me a death sentence. Maybe he had given me a reason to finally live. The next morning, for the first time in 45 years, I didn't set an alarm. Sunlight filled our bedroom. Sarah smiled. "Where are we going today?" I smiled back. "I don't know." And that's the best part. A week later, we packed one suitcase each, locked the front door, and started driving west. No deadlines, no overtime, no meetings, just an open road. Our first stop, Route 66, a small roadside diner, old neon signs, fresh coffee, homemade pie. An elderly waitress walked over. "Celebrating something?" she asked. Sarah looked at me, then smiled. "We're celebrating life." The waitress smiled, then quietly said, "Don't waste a single day." Those words stayed with me. We crossed wide-open deserts, tiny towns, endless highways. For the first time, I noticed how beautiful America really was. The sunsets, the mountains, the silence. I had rushed past all of it for decades. One evening, we finally reached the Pacific Ocean. Sarah took off her shoes, ran toward the waves, laughing like she was 20 again. I stood there, watching her. Tears filled my eyes. She turned around, reached out her hand. Come on, you've waited long enough. I walked into the cold water. The waves touched my feet, and somehow it felt like life itself was welcoming me. That night, we watched the sunset together. No phones, no distractions, no rushing, just two people who finally understood what mattered. A few days later, I called my son Jack. Dad, you sound different, he said. I finally realized what you've been trying to tell me all these years. I worked so hard, I forgot to be your father. There was silence. Then Jack said, you were always my hero. I just wanted more time with you. I couldn't speak. Neither could he. The next weekend, he flew out to meet us. We hugged longer than ever before. No words, just gratitude. The weeks passed. I learned how to cook breakfast. I learned how to sit quietly without checking the time. I learned that happiness was never expensive. It was hidden inside ordinary moments. One afternoon, Sarah handed me a small notebook, our life list. She smiled. Every dream had a check mark, except one. Help someone who feels they've run out of time. A few days later, we volunteered at a local cancer center, not because we had answers, but because we understood fear. I sat beside a man about my age. He stared out the window. Quietly, he asked, how do you keep smiling? I looked at him, then answered, because I wasted 45 years thinking life would start later. I'm not wasting. Today, he smiled. For the first time, 6 months came and went. Another scan, another appointment. Dr. Harris walked in, holding new results. He smiled. I have good news. The treatments are working better than expected. We can't promise how much time you have. But today, you're still here. I looked at Sarah. She squeezed my hand. We both smiled. Driving home, I realized something. The greatest miracle wasn't living longer. It was finally learning how to live. Years later, people often ask me, what changed your life? I always give the same answer. It wasn't the diagnosis. It was realizing tomorrow was never guaranteed. If you're waiting for the perfect time, stop. Call your parents. Hug your children. Take that trip. Forgive someone. Start today. Because one day, you'll discover the hardest truth of all. Life isn't measured by the years you survive. It's measured by the moments you truly live. I waited 45 years to start living. Then I learned that life was never waiting for me. If this story touched your heart, subscribe, because the next story might change the way you see your own life.